Hello everyone, and welcome to a Static Grass Creation Studio update. We've got Orcs and Goblins from all over the place. There's some from Kromlech, the Squigs are from Kromlech. We have fanatics from Games Workshop. I think the Skulkers and the little Goblin Archers are also from Games Workshop. I think the mounted goblin on the Squig is also from Kromlech. Not sure where this guy is from, but we have three of the big orcs over there in the back are from Games Workshop, and then the last Goblin King right here, he is from Avatars of War. First, we're going to take a look at the Goblin Archers and the Swordsmen. I believe all the models here, or all 7 models here, are from Games Workshop, including the Swordsman. They are painted to a detail standard, so we have some highlighting and layering, a little bit of shading maybe. But yeah, there was a color scheme that the client sent in, and I followed it to however close I felt like it should have been. And there are a couple things that I changed, maybe like a belt buckle or like whether or not to put blood on there and such. Yeah, I thought that was really neat that they had severed heads of dwarves. Here I will get a little bit closer. So both of these guys have a dwarf head that they're standing on. I got to do some more dead flesh type work. Very neat models. Next is the definitely not Goblin Batman. These are called Goblin Skulkers, I think. I believe they're also from Games Workshop. They're basically Goblin Assassins. I don't know if they're like a separate unit in Age of Sigmar or the previous Warhammer edition. Like how the Dark Elves have that, or the Dark Elves and Skaven can have assassins in their units. Yeah, these guys have quite a bit of character too, especially the guy in the Batman costume. I thought that was really neat. Next is one of my favorite Goblin units, actually, the Fanatics. They're one of my favorite units because of the stories behind them, or the fluff. They drug themselves up so much, and then they carry around these large iron weights that they swing around wildly in their drug stupor as they just get launched towards the enemy, hopefully. And they just keep going until they get ripped apart by swinging this thing that's like 10 times their weight, and like their limbs start falling off, or they die from an overdose from their mushroom drugs. I remember in the previous edition of Warhammer Fantasy where you would like scatter them and they would go in a random direction or a random distance, and then whatever unit they hit or fall into, they would do tons of damage to it. Pretty great. The Orcs and Goblins were an awesome army to play against. They were hilarious. Here is the last of the detail painted units, and then next will be the heroes. Here we have, they're called Gnaws, but I just call them Squigs, because that's what I've always known them as. They're models. They're resin models from Kromlech, and they look great. Love them. Yeah, so painted them up using the color schemes that Kromlech has. They have like a whole bunch of different colored squigs. And what I found interesting is they have these maws, right? These giant maws. So using Games Workshop technical paint, I added in some like saliva, I guess, some mucus or whatever slime that these things dribble out of their mouths. Let's see, this guy actually has the most. He has like a little pool. Let's see if we can. Yeah, he has like a little pool of this stuff in his mouth, as if he's just like, you know, getting ready. He's drooling. He wants some food. He wants to eat some people. Great, looks awesome. Next we have a Orc Savage, or a Savage Orc War Boss. This is a model from Games Workshop. I think it got like redone into plastic form probably last year or 2 years ago. But the model is pretty dynamic. There's lots. Well, he's in like a leaping pose, so there is a lot of movement that feels like he's in. The base is, he doesn't come with a 32mm base. He actually came with a square base and it was already decorated. So I needed to take that off and put him onto this 32mm base. So I didn't take off everything. I did leave like a stone pedestal looking thing that his foot is resting on, or his foot is launching off of. That kind of looks like a orc effigy sign or a boss pole kind of thing. So I decided to leave that there as part of the base. And then the rest of him, I followed the standard Games Workshop color scheme. He's bright green, red hair. This axe is stone, it's not metal. And because I don't know the lore behind Savage Orcs, but yeah, so I put in, I don't do this very often, but I put in tattoos on his arm. I think that looked very nice too. Something different to do. And then on his other arm he has two. He has one on his wrist. Yep, he has one on his wrist and one on his shoulder. It's like tribal tattoos kind of thing. Yeah, so this guy was done to a display standard or hero level standard. Lots of blending, some freehand is thrown in there, and yeah, all around a little bit more pizzazz than previous level. Next is a Goblin Shaman. I'm not sure where he's from. It might be Games Workshop. And I don't know. But yeah, so this model has a lot of narrative to it actually. I really liked it. Like as you can see in his hand there, he has little mushrooms that he was taking. So these mushrooms in the Orcs and Goblins army, they're like drugs to them, right? They make them go crazy. They make them do insane things that they normally couldn't or wouldn't do. And in this shaman's case, I think he took them to increase his magical power. So this is why he has, you know, a bad moon and the power like seeping out of him and it's making him float in the air. So we have, so this color scheme I followed the client gave me. So it's like two color schemes kind of mushed together, where wanted the smoke to kind of blend into a yellow trail instead of just pure green, and then the other one was yellow hood, and then how the staff was done, how the cloak was done, stuff like that was something else. It was kind of neat to see what's on the staff. You have like little dwarf dwarf gold coins. You have some bones and skulls. There's some like leather work and stuff like that on there. Very interesting. Lots of detail on these models, even though they're so tiny. The goblins. Next on the orc list is a Black Orc War Boss. The Black Orcs, I think they're like the one of the elite units, the elite orcs of the armies. So they're more heavily armored. They tend to be bigger, except for maybe the Savage Orcs. But yeah, so you have better armor. They have shields, or at least this guy does. And as well, he's done to a hero standard or display standard. Again, I don't, just like the tattoos, I don't do this very often, but I did weather him. I followed the color scheme from Games Workshop, so there's a lot of like beaten metal. Like as you can see, the paint's chipping off all the sides. It's not just located. It's not just isolated to like the arms or gauntlets or anything like that. But there is more on the gauntlets actually. As I guess orcs tend to not maintain their armor, right? So this, what I thought was kind of neat was the orcs all around. And goblins, they have different skin tones that I was following. This guy is like a very deep, like desaturated green, not like this bright, almost neon green. He's like an olive green, the Savage Orc. And then this guy is much darker. I also added a little bit of blood on there. Yep. And last of the orcs, not the goblins, the orcs, is Gore Ironhide. He is like the big baddie of the orc world. He's launched several wogs and just really been a thorn in the Empire's side since day one. This model is super cool to paint. Lots of little details. Again, I did weathering on him, and I followed the color scheme of, it looked like, might have been like another Golden Demon winner or something like that, because it was a very, it might have followed a Games Workshop color scheme, but there was a lot more done to it. In particular, there was a really neat base or diorama that came with it. Yeah, so this guy comes with like a Empire Knight's head that he severed and is holding up in the air. And then he's stepping on some Empire shields. So you have Knights of the Panther and Reichsguard Knights over there. Yeah. I don't do decapitated heads very often, but it was awesome to put like the blood and paint all the necrotic, the decaying flesh and stuff like that. The Gore, he has lots of scars on him, and like I did before in a, what was it? It was another orc that I did, or a goblin, where he also had scar tissue. And a lot of the orcs and goblins that are painted, they have like pink scarage and pink lips, as if they have red blood. That is not necessarily the case, because orcs are green and are like fungus, so it doesn't follow that they necessarily have red blood like we do. So I like to have it like a vomit brown or yellowish kind of scar, where it's kind of like they bleed ochre or syrup or something like that. Alright, and the penultimate goblin is this mounted, or this Goblin King on the shield bearers. He's just kind of like balancing on them. There's lots of character in this model. This guy is from Avatars of War. If you haven't heard of them, beautifully detailed models. Just check it out at check them out. Google that brand name. Very good looking stuff. Yeah, this guy was kind of a hoot to paint. Lots of narrative on him, where he's like standing on his shield bearers, basically like crushing their hands. Is pretty funny. And then he also has a different skin tone. I followed this color scheme that I think Avatars of War came up with it, or at least someone in their forum did. And yeah, so I followed that color scheme, and this guy's skin tone is more like a camo green versus like the regular kind of saturated green like this guy and the Goblin Archers have. So there is like some diversity in the Orc army that I really enjoyed doing. Again, there's some blending in here, so we have like the light or the sword kind of shining in like from light to dark. Lots of shading and layering. Well, not really layering, as more blending really. And the last model to show off is the mounted Goblin War Boss. This guy, I believe, is from Kromlech. Kromlech also comes out with very neat, very good looking resin models. The Goblin from Avatars of War is actually metal. However, both look amazing. And this guy looks awesome. There's so much detail on this model, and it's so neat where like the squig that he's riding on, it's like an armored squig, and there's like details, so much weathering on here. I have like a little bit of the checker freehand fading into like just it chipping off and wearing off from over time in battle. It has like Empire shields, as you can see the Comet of Sigmar over here on its flanks, or on its thighs, and then like the horns, they're massive horns that they just kind of bolted onto the armor right there, in addition to the horn that the squig has. And then as well, you have the checker freehand on the Night Goblin War Boss. He just has a spear. Yeah, very interesting to paint. He also has like a little bit of dwarf loot on his side there. This is also a color scheme that I followed mostly. I mostly followed it. There's a couple changes. I just changed the talons to bone color rather than black. I took out more checker freehand actually on the back. There's supposed to be checkers on the back cowl or the back of the hood there. I took that out. I thought it was a little bit much. I didn't want to distract from the other details that are on there. And then again, like the general theme of the goblins, they have mushrooms with them, like all the time. Yeah, I thought that's really cool. It's also done to a display standard. But yeah, I would definitely order from both of these companies. They're very, very beautiful models. Static Grass Creations is a professional miniature model painting and assembly company. Check us out at www.staticgrasscreations.com for more information. Set up a project today and let's bring some miniatures to life. If you like what you see, give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.